So this video is actually different from the weekly WOD videos. This is something we're extremely excited to introduce. So this is actually our levels chart that you're going to see in front of you. When we introduced the actual levels into classes last year, it was a big step to improve our programming. Each person is specific in their needs as to their training age, what they want to accomplish, and whatnot. So if you're coming in on day one and you're trying to do a max back squat, you're not really going to get very far because your nervous system isn't ready to handle that. The rest of your body isn't prepped to handle that, which puts you into a beginner category. As time goes on, obviously, you're going to progress to the intermediate category, and then eventually the goal is to hit that advanced category. So even though we have our structured classes for our fundamentals and our CrossFit class, it still requires differentiation between the levels that I program for on a weekly basis or a daily basis to make you better. So this is more or less just to give you guidelines as to where you should fall. We've taken kind of the average weight, and that's what most of it's based off of for the gym. There are obviously outliers for if you're smaller or bigger. We do take that into account, but again, this is just general guidelines for the general population. This isn't for a CrossFit Games athlete. This isn't for someone that is injured. This is for the general population. So keep that in mind when we are looking at these numbers. The big thing is that some of you will have to take one step back and two steps forward when you're approaching certain levels for certain movements, and that's actually a good thing. We want you guys to progress each and every time that you step into our doors. That is the goal here, to get better every time. So this will help you do that. That's the only thing that we can say, is that this is a positive. If you've been always doing advanced for certain things and then you're looking at this chart and you're not falling within that category, it's not a bad thing that you're moving into the intermediate category. It's definitely a positive, so look at it that way. And then eventually you'll hit that advanced and you'll be way more comfortable, you'll be way more stronger, faster, in better shape, etc. That's the gist of what this chart's going to offer for you guys. It is a step in the right direction for the whole of the gym. We want to keep getting better and keep getting you guys better. On the left-hand side here, you're going to see that we've actually broken up each of the categories: powerlifting, weightlifting, gymnastics, metabolic conditioning, and we have a couple benchmarks just to give you an idea of where we want you guys to fall. Beginner, intermediate, advanced, and then blue and pink for the female there. So you can see that even in the beginner category, it starts with a bar, nice and simple. So bar to 100% of your body weight. All of these numbers are always based off of your 1RM. As I mentioned, if you're a beginner, you're not really going to be testing your 1RM. So that's not a problem. We can use the strength charts. If you're doing a set of 10 rep max or a 5 rep max or whatever it may be, we're going to find those numbers based off of that. So don't go test your 1RM to see if you're out of the beginner category. That's not the goal of this. Always ask a coach. We're going to try to educate you as much as possible when we are using these charts. These are going to be all around the gym. So you can always have a peek at these as well as with the strength chart to kind of see where you fall for that. So always, if we're doing a back squat, you'll look just across the categories here. You don't have to actually look at the other stuff for that day, so ignore the rest of it. You're just looking at specifics for that movement for that day. For things like squat snatch, squat clean, this is kind of that tricky movement within CrossFit. We do see this being done a lot, wrong a lot when we're at watching videos or other CrossFits or whatever. We try to hold a high standard that you're not doing these movements until you have the prerequisites that are on the screen here. So it's in the yellow, you can read that for yourself, but the main thing is that you have certain standards before you're trying to do a squat snatch or a squat clean. When you're learning these movements within CrossFit or Olympic lifting or any sort of well, really those are the two main things, but if you're learning those two things, you're not squat snatching on day one unless really you're a freak of nature. It doesn't happen that way. You have to build up your squat. You have to build up your overhead squat, your front squat, things like that. Have the stability, have the core before you start going crazy. Yes, you can do a PVC pipe. That's different. This is for moving actual weight. So always working on technique is fine, but don't throw tons of weight on because I've programmed advanced squat snatch and the strength, or heavy squat snatch or heavy squat clean within the Metcon. You're not going to get better if you're constantly trying to do it. And the one thing I do want to stress on this, it's really important to understand that these numbers, all of them, are based off of proper form, not doing 100% body weight back squat and it looks like crap. You're not getting full depth. That's not 100% body weight back squat. Or deadlift with a completely rounded back at 130% means, oh, I'm good for intermediate. That's not what we're getting at. It always has to be quality movements, or you're not able to do that. You're just going to injure yourself. You're going to hinder your performance, and you're not going to get better. There's certain things like kettlebell swings. So intermediate for men, 2 10 reps in a row. Those are 10 good reps overhead. Things like that. So there is different ways to look at this. We have the weights that you're going to be using. We also have it as certain amount of reps in a row. So wall balls we put there. If you're intermediate for women, you should be able to do it prescribed 10 to 25 reps in a row, unbroken, hitting the top or hitting the 9-foot line, that kind of thing. Okay, so keep that in mind when you're doing these in a workout, or I put a time cap on a Metcon or whatever it might be. These are just guidelines to help you. So there's going to be a lot of questions when we do things like ring dips and bar dips and that kind of thing. But again, guidelines. So for a male, for dips on the intermediate, if you can do 5 good dips, it probably means that you're in the intermediate category. But if you're struggling when you get just before the teens, you're probably not in the advanced category. And that's where you need to kind of fit yourself in, because that stimulus is important for you, where you are and where you should be training that day. Not standing around staring at the rings doing nothing and then doing 1 rep at a time. That's not what gets you better. Pull-ups, you can read them all here. This is important as well, like for pull-ups, chest to bars, that kind of thing. 1 mile runs, 500-meter rows, all these different metabolic conditioning pieces. These are where you want to fall. It's not necessarily I program, hey, you're advanced, do this specific run or whatever it might be, but these are goals for everyone to hit. It's like, okay, I've done the run for a man in 7 minutes and 40 seconds. I'm not at the advanced level yet for that. I should probably be working on my running to get to that point. Now, we spend a lot of time working on every single number across this sheet. We might use this as like a working model where as we progress over time, we're actually going to be making this more advanced, a lot more standards for you guys to hit. But the main thing is just use it as a reference point. Benchmarks, Cindy, Fran, Grace. These are 3 pretty easy benchmarks to base things off of. You can see that Fran is 7 minutes prescribed. Grace, 7 minutes for both. Actually, we didn't change that. And then what we have is, hey, if you can do Fran in 4:30 or 5 minutes respectively, you're advanced. It means that, or sub those times, sorry. It means that you're advanced. You've worked your ass off to get to that point. And again, that means you're doing all your pull-ups, chin over the bar. You're doing all your thrusters properly. So use this as we go forward. And if you have any questions, definitely ask a coach. But this is not an ego check for people. It's just to kind of properly put you where you should be so that you can get better. The one big thing that people don't understand is there's a big difference between training age and actual age. Most of the coaches, for the most part, have a minimum of 10 years experience training. Myself, I've got at least minimum 15 years moving weight, so squatting, deadlifting, that kind of thing. I've been doing this for a long time. For the most part, I fall under advanced for a lot of these categories. Doesn't mean I'm a CrossFit Games athlete. Doesn't mean I'm trying to become a CrossFit Games athlete. This is meant for our gym. So just because you've been doing CrossFit for 2 years and you're 42 years old does not mean that you fall under intermediate or advanced. It could mean that you're a beginner still, and working with the rep ranges and the weights that I prescribe for a beginner will definitely get you better, and that's the goal. Okay, so that's this chart. Have a look at it. It'll always be on the wall so you can have a peek, but know that this is made to progress everyone. All right, thanks guys.